Yo, why's that fucking dude dressed like J. Edgar Hoover? What the fuck?
That's how they dress. This is a child from the academy.
Presumably somebody in the modern age.
This is
This
from
is
right
a
now.
new photo? Really?
Yeah, this is from like this year.
This is like a 20-year-old dude
Wow.
who's dressing like fucking.
Are they doing like something like? Are they trying to
Cosplay?
be like Orthodox Jews or something like that? So that pick a random historical moment and say this is how we should all dress.
No, they're dressing like a 1940s man because presumably that's when men were men.
A Cold War deep state man's man.
Like that hat. What kind of hat is that? What is that?
It's a fedora.
It's a fedora. That is a classic fedora, yeah. But this isn't like the fedora gentleman kind of thing. It's more cosplay than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like
Is that like overcoat, the leather gloves?
Yes.
I mean, it's an FBI agent. Like I don't know, interwork here.
This is when like in the X-Files when they have flashbacks to like Mulder's dad and the cigarette smoking man back in the day. They're
Right.
dressed like this.
Yes.
They look like this man, this child. Actually, I think.
Like this is how American men used to dress before the sexual revolution. I guess.
Well, that's
I mean,
a pretty.
like there are like
good
without the
point there.
fedora, maybe like it is nice to wear a suit sometimes. I'd literally never wear one. I like the idea of putting one on.
I look rad in a suit.
I bet you do actually.
Literally like Falco in every way.
Ray would need some sort of. I think you need like a kind of bright suit, like something really extravagant that doesn't match what you normally wear.
Like a plaid suit.
No, like a orange like pimp suit, like a
Yes, actually, I can see it. Yeah.
or like make it look like you live in when Cocolizo was a kid in like San Pedro in like the 1930s.
Yeah. Okay.
Hell yeah. This guy, all these guys are basically who David Byrne was playing in the Stop Making Sense concert with that gigantic suit. It's these guys for real. They're like children in their dad's suits.
Yeah,
but it's theirs and
or
it was
famously
tailor made.
the fucking type of dweebs that wore suits to school.
That's them. You
I
have
didn't
to in
really
their school.
go to school
as
with
we'll
anybody
see.
like that, but there are people like that.
Well, you didn't go to the St. Louis de Montfort Academy, then, did you?
No,
Out there in Pennsylvania.
Decidedly not anything
Yeah.
close to that.
Well, that's why you didn't turn out like these men's men here. Welcome back to The Empire Never Ended with Boris, Fritz, and Ray.
Yo,
Hello.
Hey,
hey, hey,
Hey.
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 We got to a good warm up there.
hey. Yeah. Oh, you know, call and response?
Yeah. No. I mean, what we said before the intro.
Oh, I don't remember anything about that now. I feel like that was a million years ago. I've already shifted
Must
over
have
to my Tefa Pista think now. I'm deep in Pico think already, warming up for this, for our TFP Part 2 episode.
TFP.
Yeah, the tradition, family, and property. Did you guys already forget? Because I honestly kind of did. I got so into the Tupamaros between the last episode and this one that I just fucking dropped these dweebs completely in my mind.
You really did. I'm surprised how hard you went for the Tupamaros.
Yeah. It's like directly related to how much I hate these dudes. You know,
you
and
make
I'm
your-
Because
just
you secretly do want to kidnap a TFP
secretly.
person. Yeah, you openly now.
I openly
to all of our
advocate
listeners
this.
admitted that you want to kidnap a member of tradition, family, and property,
and
keep
have a
them in your
people's
people's prison where you talk to them forever.
Did you make a basement prison already?
Well, yeah, our old studio back there in Death Valley.
He's Fritz, not Joseph Fritzl.
Oh,
Okay, that maybe is a little distasteful, but okay.
they have people in Austria.
Yeah.
they'll get the reference.
I mean, it is one of the most horrible. I mean, Fritzl, complete monster. But yeah,
he was
in a different way than these people.
That's true. This is more of a many-headed Hydra than a single horrible pervert. It's a very prolific, well-established, very fashy, possibly super fascist, depending on how we like to use that word with our boy Evola.
Yeah, I think we established they are super fascists.
Yeah. They're more medieval than the medieval ages, the Middle Ages.
Although in the film that we talked about in the Patreon episode, because this is not a Patreon episode, correct?
Hell no, this is for the people.
That's right.
This is the people's episode.
The TFB guy did come off as somewhat lovable in some ways.
He was a bit of a scamp.
He was just kind of a dum-dum who was like...
Yeah. Yeah, these guys are straight up brainwashed. I'm not comfortable with that word usually. We talked a bit about it on previous episodes and how it became like a common parlance during the Cold War. But so did these guys.
I mean, brainwashed terrorists, these are things
but these are literally brainwashed terrorists, though. I mean, like their old form, if we recall, of the TFP, back in the day, Plinio Correa de Oliveira, the founder Pico, was forming youth brigades, taking them from their families, turning them against their mothers in pretty vicious ways, and also having them beat each other. Beat each other up, whip each other, go into cages, announce that they are pigs, and oink. And then send them out into the world to beat communists. Like that? I haven't seen evidence of dunce caps, but I think if you've already got the hair shirt going, the dunce cap is kind of, why bother?
I don't know. That's what you think. Dunce cap is a good statement.
It is. But so is forcing a child. So is forcing a child to go into a pig pen and scream, "I am a pig," and then oink at you.
Yeah.
I think, as far as powerful statements go.
Yeah.
But that's the TFP. That was TFP in the wild 60s, 70s, 80s. But you know what?
When tradition, family, and property also had you abolish your own family by, denouncing your parents or whatever.
Yeah, and then also give your property to them.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
and as with Catholic tradition, look at your local Bible study leader as an immortal demigod. Whose mother is akin to Mary herself. So they got tradition, family, and property down pat. Down pat. 3 for 3 there. Way to go, Tefapistas, which is what they were called. I wish I knew that before. Isn't that adorable?
It is.
Tefapistas. Yeah. So we're continuing our study into the Tefapistas today. And I wanted to start with, a video just to warm us up. It's not even related. Okay, it's all related. It's all connected, but it's not necessarily directly on our path today. I just wanted to share it just to get us into the spirit here. Attacked by tolerance. Here we go. All right.
Nice.
I just want to listen to the first few, the first minute of this with you guys, just to share in the joy on this Halloween season. So I don't know, this was just a video that I thought was nice because it's kind of how I wish every video that fascists make about themselves would start. So here we go.
TFP student action.
It's TFP student action, baby.
All right. It sounds promising.
So we're watching some libs abuse some TFP people. And it says attacked by tolerance.
They're getting the finger, the double whammy.
Yeah. This footage shows how volunteers with tradition, family, and property were attacked for supporting traditional marriage.
Yes.
In this video, you will see TFP volunteers being assaulted, threatened, pepper sprayed, hit with glass bottles, sprayed with pesticide, punched, and spit on. And their literature was stolen, ripped, and burned.
That's
tolerance?
It.
Question mark.
You can pause it. I just wanted to get into the vibe. Isn't it great though to hear this? Wouldn't it be great to see if every fucking National Alliance video started with them you're about to see National Alliance members get pepper sprayed, covered in pesticide, spit on, punched, pushed, wedgied, giving swirlies.
I mean,
I was about to
great
say
content.
they're not doing fascism properly. Like, you're supposed to show videos of you doing that to other people.
Right. Yes. Yeah. The Catholics, they got it all backwards here.
like they have these like symbols of strength, like the stupid fucking like lion medieval banner kind of bullshit. Like you think the motherfuckers that roll around with that would be like beating up people and not
They learn
like being
combat.
like, we're being attacked for our values.
Yeah, dude, this thing goes
Respecting
on.
traditional marriage.
This thing goes on to have these long interviews with emotive music behind them, where one of the kids in this TFP student action group will like be sort of positioned diagonally to the camera with a blue background, and he'll recount his experience. You know,
I was getting sprayed as well, the pesticide, stained my clothes and stained the black plastic on the camera as well.
What would have hit my face hit the front of the sign.
They didn't give him a voice modulator for his safety.
no, sadly, no. They put their first and last names on all of them.
The blue surrounded me. There was nothing I could do.
Yes, yeah, but So those are the guys we're on to today. We're talking about the American TFP. But in order to do that, we got a little bit of house cleaning from the last ep. Just to finish up a little bit of that story and say how it got to America. And then we're pretty much just going to watch a video that they made together.
The American one's the funny one. No, like the Brazilian one seems kind of scary. And
I prefer to think of them as the scary one and the extra sad one.
Okay.
But
sad and funny can be related sometimes.
That's what I'm saying.
Our show.
Yeah. It's in that horror that the humor arises, for sure. So, guys, in the last episode, if you recall, it feels like ages ago, we discussed the rise of the seminal Tradcath super-fascist group, Tradition, Family, and Property in Brazil, leading up to the 1964 coup against Goulart. And we followed them as well into Chile and back on the Patreon there. We also caught a little glimpse of them in Uruguay as well, and learned about suspicions at the time about the TFP's involvement in Brazilian intelligence in Uruguay. And I found out since then that in Montevideo, Tupamaro's activists were also recording like straight up like Nazi groups organizing in broad coalitions underneath the TFP banner. And this makes a lot of sense because, as we saw, the TFP's founder, Plinio Correa de Oliveira, I call him Pico, had turned himself into a central right-wing figure in South America as the frequent host of fascists and war criminals in the World Anti-Communist League. We had a look at their recruitment and training methods by which the TFP enlisted young adolescent and teenage boys into these ultra-violent street gangs meant to intimidate progressive elements, especially like progressive like Catholic elements in political society. Like they did some bishop purging, some old purging of the clergy there. And we also spent a lot of time with their founder, Pico, and the evolution of his ideology, sort of melding reactionary attacks against this, more progressive South American clergy and the hierarchy with formative Red Scare messaging about pinko peace movements and anti-nuclear weapons activists and all of this, which he folded into a kind of a fresh psyop-oriented interpretation of communism, moving the locus of the communist threat away from the idea of a military invasion and sort of into the hidden amorphous enemy inside. This is not that different than what, for instance, John Birch was throwing around that time. I would say whereas John Birch society tended to shy away from open aggression against Jewish people, the TFP in South America did not. They were on it, and
that's why a lot of Nazis that got their start in the John Birch Society left because they were insufficiently anti-Semitic.
Yeah, there's not a problem for the early TFP.
For the TFP.
No, sir. And they would become a pretty big hit there in the Cold War USA. So within the U.S. reactionary Catholic scene in 1960s was a group who I think we have to call the Wanderer, which was the name of their publication. I'm not sure what the group that published The Wanderer was called, but The Wanderer was a Catholic arm of Paul Weyrach's New Right, basically our own domestic conservative revolutionaries of Americanism. Weyrach had his hand in everything. He invented the idea of the moral majority, and a lot of the more like fascistic elements that we associate with Reaganism came from Weyrach, including stuff like, he made the Heritage Foundation, shit like that. After the Second Vatican Council, Paul, who was Catholic, was so, disgusted by this heresy that he converted to Greek Orthodox, but never fell out entirely with his Catholic roots. This guy, Paul Weyrach, he was, when Paul died, like, Mike Pence gave a speech saying, like, when I was a boy, I wished I was Paul Weyrach, like psychotic shit like that. Paul came up in the Racine campaign for Barry Goldwater in 1964, and he worked his way into D.C. by around 1966. Paul's big thing was at first, like, protecting segregated schools after segregation, right? He was an anti...
What do you mean by protecting?
Like, a lot of these schools suffered a massive white flight, creating these private Christian schools, these church-affiliated schools that were all white intentionally. These were like segregation academies, they were called. And Paul sort of moved into this moral majority idea and into that era of sort of evangelical New Right people through his work in maintaining segregated academies and stuff like that. Like, he was a racist first, the abortion thing all came second. But even before he got there, tradition, family, and property was already hard at work, planting similar seeds among conservative Catholics. And the Wanderer had made this like 500-person conference of like the creme de la creme of traditionalist conservatives on behalf of the TFP, introducing them to America, and the TFP got to show like a slideshow and give a speech from Pico, and all of this. And they did this for them a few times, this group called the Wanderer there.
Do you know why they chose that name? It seems kind of an odd name for like an anti-Semitic organization specifically. I mean, what? It was wandering.
I forget why it's called The Wanderer. I think it refers to a poem.
Or they're lost because the Pope isn't real anymore or something, or what?
No, I think it comes more from this like British colonial poetry scene, like, those kinds of writers and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it's one of those references. But I'm not sure why they're called The Wanderer. But just so we're on the same page here, while the TFP is kind of going around here with The Wanderer and all that, the coup in Brazil had like just occurred, right? Like 2 years prior to this. And they were a big part of this, mobilizing especially women for the coup. And so look already within 2 years how well they're doing with all this new junta state support that they're getting. Like they got tons of money from the Brazilian state. They had the ear of the junta regime. They were fine. And they had essentially now Brazilian diplomatic status, like their ambassadors would be TFP guys, So they immediately start making their hooks here in the U.S. And, Plinio's special homegrown brand of this PSYOP communist conspiracy theories were blending really well with the existing John Birch style stuff. And it was a very comfortable fit from the get-go. But there was this one interesting association of The Wanderer that precedes both Paul Weyrach and the TFP's involvement with them. And that was this wacky little journal by a guy named Condi McGinley that was called Common Sense. I had initially heard about Common Sense because I had read incorrectly that it was Willis Carto's paper. And that was very easy to believe because Common Sense is just Willis Carto shit. It's full-on Nazi, Holocaust denying, Elders of Zion reprinting insanity, right? So this guy, McGinley, he had something called the Christian Educational Association, the CEA. They were so openly Nazi and anti-Semitic that in the 50s, like height Red Scare people on trial for communism period. These guys got investigated for being too fascist, which you have to be super fascist in the 50s.
Yeah, you have to try really hard for that to happen.
Yes. So like these guys helped make space for Willis Carto even. Like these guys go back that far, And
Willis Carto, just to let our listeners know, we will be covering more extensively in this upcoming arc.
Yeah, I assume fairly early in it.
Yeah.
It'll be up there, yeah. So we'll get all into Carto and all this.
Liberty Lobby guy.
Yeah.
A Yorkian.
He is. He is. He's a dedicated Yorkian. If you ever want to know what those guys are like, stick around for Arc 5. So, I would like to, if I can, give you guys a little quiz that I found in an issue of Common Sense, this Christian Educational Association thing. Here we go. I called it Quiz for the Boysies. And it's called...
Are you an informed, patriotic American?
So, this is the subtitle here.
Test yourself in this unrigged quiz.
Although it's weird, because unrigged is in quotations. Don't know what they mean.
If you can answer 7 out of 10 correctly, you are an informed person. If you know all the answers, you'll be fighting mad.
All right. You ready?
Yep.
Question number 1.
The NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, is not a Negro outfit. No Negro has ever been president and is likely to be. Who really directs it?
Jews?
Oh, wow. That's one down. Yeah.
Are you religious? What organization has stolen the Holy Bible and all prayers from public schools and makes the Almighty God of no importance to children and has been done in the Soviet Union? How does this organization plan to destroy Christianity?
Wait, in the Soviet Union, they said?
Just like in the Soviet Union.
The Communist Party.
Yeah.
How do they plan to destroy Christianity?
The question is, what is the question we are answering?
What? So there's 2 questions. What organization stole the Holy Bible and all prayers from public schools, like it has been done in the Soviet Union? How does this organization plan to destroy Christianity?
So they did something like it was done in the Soviet Union.
All right, I'm going to give you a big hint. It rhymes with Melders of Riot.
Okay. I mean, the answer again is Jews.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have the sneaking suspicion that might be the answer to most of these.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll just tell you the titles of the next questions, and you can just guess. Number 3 was called American Communism. Number 4 was Civil Rights. 5 Foreign Aid Giveaways. 6 Illegal Aliens. 7 Forced Integration. 8 Mental Health, which is a fun one.
Is this designed to help mentally sick people, of which there is 1 in 25,000? Or is it a plot to remove from circulation without trial all who politically oppose the communist takeover of America?
9 Metro Government. And 10 is communism still Jewish?
No. It's Norwegian now.
Oh, you missed that one.
It's Chinese.
So there's 10 questions. The answer to all of them are the Jews. And that's what was going on here in the Christian Educational Association.
Keeping it simple.
So basically, the Christian Educational Association and The Wanderer were tied at the hip. Like you would see them co-publish. They shared authors, and they also shared authors eventually with Willis Carto when he finally starts up his paper. So these are like some seminal dudes here before Willis Carto was even like a big deal in this scene.
You keep saying seminal, which really doesn't sit well with me after that whole Catholic.
That's true. That's true.
Dick sucking thing.
These were all I can think about is like fucking sperm now. These were foundational dudes. So so it's good to see you guys have, common sense, right? And know what's up. So I guess the short story of all that is that TFP is basically introduced to the US through these guys. This kind of scene of people, through like people that would be Willis Carto associates, even before he went all the way in on that, The Wanderer and Common Sense. But then they become the darling of Paul Weyrich, the New Right, the moral majority, and eventually Reaganism, of all of which I'll explain as we go. But that's the basic idea, and I think why they're so sticky here. They're one of those connective threads, right, that binds the old fascist right to the new neoliberal right, is what I'm trying to say. So,
cool.
The Wanderer gave the TFP a spotlight in the forum in 1968. Now they were rubbing shoulders with people like, this is the TFP now, Senator Jesse Helms, the Salvadorian Death Squads are Free Enterprises guy. Representative Bob Dornan, who was pushing for B-1 bomber funding and shit like that, before these guys were household names of the time as like far-right politicians. And and he was also there with Phyllis and Eleanor Schlafly, who ran this Red Scare Catholic group called the Cardinal Mindszenty Foundation, which had thousands of members in 42 states by the time they met with the TFP. And if the name Schlafly sounds familiar, it's because there was recently a miniseries made, I think through like Hulu or something, about the Schlaflys and their fight against gender equality called Mrs. America. And Fred Schlafly in that, he's played by John Slattery in the show. Fred Schlafly was president in various times of the World Anti-Communist League. And Phyllis, his wife, worked for the Assembly of Captive European Nations, which was the CIA group of exiled anti-communists and fascists and war criminals and shit.
Some of our faves here.
Yeah. These are the people that the TFP's meeting on like their first day at school, pretty much. Like hardcore Elders of Zion guys and Assembly of Captive European Nations people and World Anti-Communist League presidents and shit like that. So, and like senators, yada yada. So in the first years of the 1970s, the TFP everywhere is spreading really quickly, reaching something like 20 countries in the 70s, mostly in Latin America, but also in Spain and France and Italy and Canada, and actually most of the intermarium states. And there's actually a current relationship with European TFP groups and the Intermarium Project, as you might expect. And if you ever want a deep dive on the Intermarium stuff, I'm sorry, but you got to go to the Patreon. But in short, it's this I know it's got a good 100 years of history, but it's some deep state Nazi shit with strong U.S. support that centers around now today Duda's Law and Justice Party in Poland and contemporary Banderas in Ukraine, in short. Right, that's the idea. But the TFP has threads running through that as well today. But in the first part of the 70s, back in South America, TFP headquarters in Sao Paulo got a big upgrade, and they were freely granted the use of a literal palace by one of their landowning, like, ultra-rich supporters. And they still have that palace today.
Damn.
Well, I mean, if you're like for feudalism, you need to have a palace, no?
At the very least, yes. And interestingly, it's around this very time that word is leaked that the Brazilian military was making plans to possibly invade Uruguay in the event of a broad front victory there. But with the defeat of the Tupamaros that we talked about on the Patreon and the rise of the military dictatorship in Uruguay, it obviated that whole plan. But like this got out, which, probably is why they kidnapped that fucking dude. But like the fact that this never had to happen didn't stop their palace from getting firebombed, the TFPs, and all their little TFP bases in like Colombia and Uruguay and Brazil and Chile getting attacked and firebombed by people. So people were like fighting back against them. They knew who they were and they were targeting them. But it wasn't like this in the US of A. There was no resistance here. Nobody's getting firebombed. The TFP is making inroads even with the Protestant right in the mid-70s, way before Paul Weyrich reached out to Jerry Falwell. Before all that shit, it started here with the TFP. And a TFP member, they call themselves slaves. So when I say that...
They what?
TFP volunteers, are some of them refer to themselves as slaves. Like holy slaves.
Okay.
Holy slavery. Yeah. So
sounds like fun.
If I call them a slave, it's not a judgment. Okay. It's their own word for themselves.
So they're slaves to God or what?
Well, I guess, I think probably to Plinio, but yeah, I think ideally to God. But they also, thought Plinio was a literal immortal prophet from God. So it probably carried over. But there was this TFP slave. This is how he called himself, named Correa. This is his surname. And he was responsible for setting up TFP colonies in Canada, and he boldly formed a relationship with this rabidly anti-Catholic guy named Carl McIntyre, who at the time was like the leading Protestant voice in the U.S. promoting Red Scare propaganda. So McIntyre was like at the time calling Catholics fucking like Satanists and traitors and Masons and that kind of thing, you know? Correa, this ultra-Catholic TFP, sends a very friendly letter to McIntyre saying that he was a big fan of his journal. And McIntyre ends up responding by inviting the TFP to attend and speak at his crazy gatherings that he had. And they forged a strategic friendship here. And it's a pretty interesting move for the TFP, who had up to this point defined themselves as being like fascists that were singularly focused on enemies of the Catholic Church, right? That was where they drew the line for everybody. They talked a lot about how they loved Mussolini, if only he wasn't building mosques, for instance, you know?
Right.
That kind of shit.
And I guess that's something that works a lot better in a majority Catholic country, too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Brazil.
Yeah.
Or
but welcome
Chile
to the USA. You know, it's very different. And so they made these links. They were doing really well. There was less street fighting in the USA, right? There was no military coups. It was all politicking and printing and creating this northern network of Americanists. So the American Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family, and Property is finally officially formed in 1975. They call themselves TFP when they put a little trademark symbol on it, so you know it's real.
Just to reinforce the whole property thing, too, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's TFP-TM. Yes. TFP, property of the TFP. All of this is only because I want to watch this like ridiculous video at the end and just have enough background to appreciate it fully. We're gonna work. We're gonna eat dinner, and then we're gonna have dessert. Just relax and watch this fucking film they made. So at one of these World Anti-Communist League gatherings that TFP was hosting regularly in Rio, Jesse Helms and Billy Graham were meeting up there with some of their, I guess, Nazi friends. And Jesse is quoted as saying to Billy this:
Europe is spiritually almost dead. Now, South America is in a full process of religious awakening, producing the leadership of the strongest anti-communist movements.
And I thought that was interesting. This is a quote that is referenced in TFP research because, like, this is seen as also something behind the TFP's, self-ideology as well. And it exactly mirrors what we talked about when we talked about the Intermarium as this kind of Spenglerian beginning, And it was just interesting for me to hear Billy Graham give like a Spenglerian take on Europe,
They may have also just liked going to Rio.
I think they loved it. Yes.
Oh man, Europe's dead. Let me tell you, this is where it's at.
Anything goes. Yeah. But in the late 70s, TFP got super tight with the executive director of the College Republican National Committee named Morton Blackwell. Morton, who within a couple of years would become the special assistant to the Gipper himself. That's Ronald Reagan. I don't know if the Gipper is an internationally known nickname for Ronald Reagan, but now you know it. He's the Gipper. So Blackwell was approached while editing Paul Weyrach's New Right newsletter. That is so fucking hard to say. Paul Weyrach's New Right newsletter, and making like a visit to Brazil to see Pico. And Morton Blackwell reported while he was there,
"For the first time, we encountered a foreign group solidly committed to our core values, but which had developed impressive skills in organization and communication."
But Morton was a little bit sketched out by all the boy whipping and the cult shit, and thought, but he phrased it really diplomatically. He was like,
But some of the stuff they do is impractical for the U.S.
Which, no, it's not. No, it's not. We're totally down with that shit. We're a nation of joiners.
Isn't that also like the whole thing with a lot of those like conservatives now, which is like, you can't give your kid the belt anymore. Whatever happened to good spanking?
Oh, yes. These guys are just literally having boys whip each other in combat scenarios. Yeah.
See, the Americans had already gone too soft.
Yeah. I guess Blackwell probably did think that because he became one of their biggest supporters abroad, including in South Africa and Scotland, where he advised them on TFP propaganda strategies there and methods that they could use to like spread their word abroad and stuff. And so between Weyrich and Blackwell, the TFP was a shoo-in then to gain Reagan's extreme favor, which it eventually did. By that time, the TFP in the U.S. had already attracted some press attention, though. And there's this very interesting New York Times article as early as 1978 that went around to different Tradcath groups in America, like The Wanderer and this SSPX Texas Chapel, and asked them all who the fuck the TFP is. The respondents, all of them are kind of a little cagey about it. It's kind of lukewarm about the group. The Wanderer is like they're too political. You know, the SSPX Chapel actually says the same thing. But this guy named Father Balduke, gave a very specific picture of what he learned about the TFP. He said this: "One of their main goals is reestablishment of monarchies. They research that sort of thing, and they buy pieces of land to make themselves autonomous and set up fiefs. Their members assign themselves titles such as Duke or Knight, and they have jousting contests and sword fights. This is the one thing that's caused a great deal of criticism in the United States," he said. I put that in here because one of you guys asked that, I think, in the last episode.
Yeah.
How does this all go over in the U.S.? Well, there was some friction. There was a little bit of friction here. People were asking that. Hey, y'all monarchists?
Who's supposed to be the king? I guess the British monarch?
Never clear. I'm the Braganzas, I suppose.
Well, because even
Portuguese royalty.
Willis Carto and people like that describe, were very anti-monarchy. They were.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if they're like into some idea of legitimacy, it should be the British monarch. But the problem is they're not Catholics,
right?
So that's
and they're Americans. They can't support the British monarch. It would make them loyalists, and the people that they expelled to Canada.
But I mean, if they're like these kind of neo-feudal traditionalists, then they're supposed to. I mean, I bet
no, they have their own neo. They have their own neo. Well, they have a culture that they developed on their own, which is
It's called the Papal States.
Slave.
No. I bet they would. I bet if Britain was Catholic, they would support the British monarch. But
oh, sure. Yeah. I imagine it's probably just the right pope for them is the monarch. Sure. Speaking of popes, though, so that year in 1978, Pope John Paul I died, and there was a report going around that, contrary to the stuff that you see written on their websites about the Honorable Pope, there was news that TFP members in the U.S. applauded for 10 minutes after hearing that he had died. And there were further rumors that they were using John Paul I's photo for target practice in their little fucking training camps and shit. So I don't know what they thought about that Pope. But, word of this was getting around. People started to hear these stories.
I bet they're big fans of Francis now.
Hey, yeah, man. This is the closest they've ever been to Sedevacantist. They actually invented a new word to describe the feeling that they're feeling right now. I'm sorry to say I've forgotten it, but it's they have a new concept for this because they don't want to be out of communion with the church. That's one thing they never totally do.
They want Francis to go back to the days when he was collaborating with the Argentine military dictatorship.
Yeah, what's wrong with collaborating and covering up sex scandals like he used to,
Or, killings and all kinds of things.
Yeah. So, word of this TFP weirdness was getting around, and in Brazil, a man that was pegged to be Pico's successor one day.
Sorry.
This is one of his closest slaves, incidentally. This guy ditched the group. And he got real loud about them being a fucked up cult with a secret inner circle called Sempre Viva, a reference to Plinio's immortality. The home organization is starting to fray at this point back in Brazil, but internationally, the TFP is eating high on the hog, making connections between Moonies and celebrity death squad commanders and key figures from the Iran-Contra affair.
How does everybody have a connection to the Moonies?
Everybody does. Because if you have a connection to the fucking CIA, So they're,
the CIA department for religious freaks is probably in charge of both groups. So
the one department I would work in for sure. So, but it's really because they're central to the World Anti-Communist League. Like this is huge for them. Like this is where they make all their big friends, outside of the U.S. and in the U.S. So while the SSPX is getting their asses excommunicated, the Society of St. Pius X and Lefebvre and all that, when they're getting excommunicated, TFP, which at one point was identical to Lefebvre in a lot of ways, they were working together very closely, they're still doing it. They're out there, they're fine with the church, and they're moving and shaking in the highest and most fascist echelons of hemispheric power. And in 1985, American TFP leader C. Preston Noel III founded America Needs Fatima campaign. These guys. So we spent plenty of time talking about the Cold War significance of the Black Pill Mary, the Lady of Fatima apparition. But now, here it's reached a certain apotheosis, I think. These guys, this America Needs Fatima campaign, they went everywhere, and they still do. It's still a thing, and it's one of these lasting elements of the TFP in America today. And here's a little blurb from Wikipedia that somehow struck me as inherently funny. So I kept it. But you will see a variation of this exact mission statement on their own propaganda as well. It says this: since 1994, the primary activity of America Needs Fatima has been the, quote, Mary in Every Home program. It consists of a Fatima custodian taking a 4-foot-tall statue of Our Lady of Fatima to a person's home with a crowning and enthronement ceremony, a short audiovisual presentation about the story of Fatima, Portugal, and the praying of the Rosary. That's what they offer. Yeah.
We, of course, had an episode on the Fatima phenomenon.
Oh, yeah. We've had a couple now. Yeah, the last TFP episode, we spent some time on it, too. So just
a 4-foot statue is not small.
That ain't small. That's a meter and a bit.
That's about 120 something centimeters, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Because we use metric on this show, gentlemen. It's the right thing to do. So I found some more specific information on what exactly they offer for interested Fatimans much later in the 2000s. And this is from a Q&A on their website. This is what they say. What is the Mary in Every Home apostolate? America Needs Fatima's Mary in Every Home apostolate consists in a 2-hour Fatima home visit and presentation. An America Needs Fatima custodian brings a 48-inch Pilgrim Virgin statue, which is then crowned by the host or hostess in his or her home. The rosary is prayed, a 25-minute DVD on the Fatima story and message is shown, and the custodian gives 2 small presentations. And then it says this: free devotional materials on the rosary and the first 5 Saturdays devotion are also distributed. America Needs Fatima has 12 dedicated custodians who travel the country, reaching thousands of homes every year. So, it starts to feel a little bit increasingly like a Better Call Saul kind of scheme to me. Mm-hmm. Like it seems targeted at old people. You get this strong vibe. And I looked at the one and only comment on this entire website. This entire website has one comment on it. And it's this: I had been a faithful follower of America Needs Fatima. I am in constant pain, under heavy medications. I had ordered some free devotional items and offers. I had received a couple, but did not receive others. I accidentally typed the wrong address. I attempted to correct my mistake. They accused me of attempting to order more than one item each. I attempted to explain I was not trying to get more than one item each, but due to my medicine and illness, I had typed the wrong address and was trying to correct the error. Since then, they have refused to send me any free items. Due to the lack of funds, the cost of medications, doctor appointments, and recently, my husband was also diagnosed with cancer to the liver. I pray a lot. I enjoy reading devotional books. I attempted to order a free book about Mary, the free rosary, but was of course denied. I emailed Mr. Ritchie several times to explain the situation. He has never responded. The office said I would go through them first to see if I can get any free material. What happened to forgiveness, the benefit of the doubt? There's nothing Christian about Mr. Ritchie or his office staff, so I unsubscribed to the organization, yet recently I received another letter requesting monetary donations. After the way I've been treated, my husband attempted to order a free book, same thing. They need to look after themselves and ask for God's forgiveness for the way they're treating people. So,
that's just sad. I mean, that's
super.
That's horrible.
Yeah, but this is who they're preying on. You know what I mean? And like it's definitely this
just seems like
scam.
one of those like weird mafia side scams. That somebody's been running for decades.
Yes. Yeah. So it's like a scam, and they're mean to like sick old ladies whose fucking husbands have cancer.
Yeah. I just want to read Mary.
Yes. And get my free rosary that you promised after your 2-hour presentation where you begged me for money. Christ's love, huh? You feeling it?
Yeah.
I'm feeling it. So, yeah, on its face, it's another one of these scammy, religious groups collecting money from old people, getting mad at movies, protesting abortion clinics. It is all of those things, but it's also a pretty well-designed gateway to bring certain kinds of Catholics who are on the margins of the conservative movement into a very active, very communal anti-communist, ironically, and outright fascist sort of activism. This is like the Fatima thing. Let's not forget it. Okay, at this point, there was this release of the supposed third secret of Fatima that was leaked somehow and traveled through Tradcath circles. It was later refuted by John Paul II. But the third secret that was leaked was very explicit about the nuclear holocaust that was implicit in the 1941 version. So now, like, Fatima at this time is all about that nuclear war. Yeah. So, meanwhile, Reagan advisor, New Right daddy, Paul Weyrich, is still visiting Brazil in the 80s, giving very weird and specific, like, local policy wank speeches about Michael Dukakis. This is to Brazilian fascists, and they love it. They love all of this. In the end, Paul Weyrich says to the TFP,
"Allow me to say in conclusion that I consider it a great privilege to be here. The conversations I've had with your leader have been the most extraordinary of my entire political life."
That's Pico he's talking about.
"And I thank you for being here because you all honor me with your presence. In our battles, both the United States and in the world, the TFP is one of the few trustworthy and truly coherent organizations with which we can associate. And we thank God for your existence and hope that you continue in this great struggle. And we will continue to collaborate with you in our country."
So the 80s are a pretty sweet time for them, despite having their like shit bombed all the time. They're doing fine. But Plinio dies in 95. And it for a moment they have like a hiccup. But at that point
he's not immortal, clearly.
He's not immortal, but I guess, when your standard for immortality is being dead, you can say a lot of people are immortal if you want to.
Fair.
But
yeah.
The organization is now at this point in 25 countries and had vastly outgrown Pico. And historian George Wink characterizes it like this. At the time of Plinio's death, at stake was the control of an organization with around 1.5 million followers, 200,000 militants, 700 internals living in 70 real estates and dedicating their lives to the organization, besides the ownership of the still widespread journal Catolicismo, as among others. So that's a lot of people, that's a lot of property. And as you might imagine, it did result in an unfriendly split between the Institute of Plinio Correa de Oliveira, which retained control over the palace and most of the TFP resources and property, and some other group called the Heralds, who I assume went on to become some sort of TTRPG bad guy. There were a smaller group of Tepafistas. They went off on their own. But the TFP in the U.S. was so independent and strong on its own at this point that they barely felt any of those like reverberations of the struggle. They continued to grow under the Institute's broad administrative umbrella, and they were fine. In fact, at this point, I think it's fair to say that the U.S. branch had become, if not equal in power to the Brazilian one, perhaps even more central, having their own set of relationships and things. So it wouldn't be long, though, before the U.S. branch suffers its own internal divorce, creating two antagonistic branches there too that, strangely enough, would at various points be led by two completely unrelated people named Horvat, the Hungarian word for Croat.
Yeah.
This was John Horvat and Marion Horvat. So you got a tale of two Horvats here. And both of them hated, and still hate, a cardinal named, I think his name is Chupic, Blaise Chupic, who is a Croatian as well. It's an inter-Croatian struggle of some kind. So here's Mary.
Horvat is a Hungarian last name. Yeah, you're right. It means Croatian, but it's usually a Hungarian last name.
It is. But it's but it's a Hungarian word for Croatian.
Yes.
For Croat. It's a confusing one. So let's start with Marion. Marion Horvat seems to have joined the TFP officially in 95, and she made her own subgroup called Tradition in Action. But it seems like she was already somehow connected to, in contact with Plínio himself in Brazil back in 1977. So Tradition in Action took and still takes a very hardline stance against Vatican II that would eventually lead its founder, Marion Horvat, to recognize a Montreal-based anti-pope named Jean-Gaston Tremblay, who went by, hold on, this is some fucking bullshit though, he went by Pope Gregory the 17th. And now we all know who the true Pope Gregory the 17th is, and that's Clemente Dominguez y Gomez, the Palmarian Spanish anti-pope with no fucking eyeballs.
So wait, there's two competing ones of the same name?
There's the real one, and then there's this guy who's obviously an anti-pope at best. And,
hell yeah.
I mean, he gave it his best shot. He provoked decades of investigations into kidnappings and illegal detentions and abuse of children. So, it's a good case for an anti-pope, but... And I know people like Ray are going to say, Fritz, didn't Tremblay declare himself Gregory the 17th a decade before Gomez did?
Exactly.
Well, sure, Ray, you're going to say that because you don't respect the Toke line of consecration. And the real fake Gregory the 17th was consecrated long before he was Pope by Archbishop Toke. And if the CIA and 2 German clones like Hiller and Heller say he's a good dude, that is good enough for me. And furthermore, fuck this guy. I know who my Gregory the 17th is. He's not Canadian. That's for damn sure.
We absolutely agree on that in this show. We have
yes.
one Pope Gregory the 17th.
This dude had too many eyeballs to be Pope Gregory the 17th.
That's right.
Did he even have a Benz?
Probably not.
Did he have whatever it's called, an X2? What was that car that got stolen? Anyway, going off on this. So Marion goes with this anti-pope. Her supporters think that the TFP essentially forced her into that position because they expelled her and they kicked her when she started to become more of a sedevacantist. And so the other Horvat, though, he sucks too. But hold on, wait. There's a wait.
Okay.
Wait. Hold on. I forgot to mention. There's actually a magazine being published at this time, right? When both Horvats are in the organization, and it's called The Crusade. It starts in like 1979, and it still goes on. It's still a magazine. There are a few like fun moments in this magazine here or there, flipping through like the 80s and 90s episodes, but most of it's just like batshit late or post Cold War stuff. Like they'll ask the vice president of the American Foreign Policy Council to comment on the secret of Fatima and the errors of Russia, and this dude in the 90s will straight up have answers for this because like these fucking tradcaths were like everywhere in DC, at this time. But I did find an interesting piece from the Crusade from the mid 90s that had Boris's name written all over it. It had Ray's name on it too, but he's got to do his homework on Kali Yuga. Didn't want to distract him. But Boris, did you read this article I sent you from the Crusade in the end? The one about
the X-Files review?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely did. Yeah, it was hilarious.
Was there anything notable in it?
I mean, it's like I don't know, it's a perfect moral panic piece from the 90s. That's so cliche that the subject that is harming himself by watching the X-Files is little Johnny.
Yes. Awesome. Yes. So it's like a put yourself in little Johnny's place kind of thing.
I mean, here. He used to go out with friends on Friday night, but they have been preempted by The X-Files. Johnny is 15, and The X-Files is his favorite TV show. He watches all the reruns, reads X-Files novels, and is taking an interest in the paranormal. In tonight's episode, FBI agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully investigate deaths at a Haitian refugee camp. This is actually kind of a shitty episode, honestly. But
well, maybe that's why they turned against it.
No. It's not shitty for the reasons that, they don't like it. It's
shitty
because
problem,
basically anything that the X-Files did that involved like a kind of non-Western culture, they did kind of badly for the most part. But no, the problem is with little Johnny is that, he's watching the X-Files and it's influencing him to be interested in the paranormal.
Fuck yeah, it is.
New Age religion, which
it's
a nice throwback. And then the majority of the articles then just kind of shifts away from the X-Files to talk about like the evils of New Age, pantheism, extraterrestrials, reincarnation, all that kind of stuff. That's all bad.
It's also funny that they're complaining that John is not going out on Friday nights anymore. Like they would like anything that he does. And he goes out on Friday night.
Johnny's curfew is at 6 p.m. Are you kidding?
Johnny's trying acid at the mall with his friends. It would be another moral panic piece about little Johnny's escapades on a Friday night that he's not watching the X-Files.
I wonder if little Johnny came back, actually. And you made me want to go back to the PDF I have and do a scan through the decades, see how many times little Johnny's in there.
I mean, it's great. The truth is out there, and trust no one's. Our slogan's well tailored to Johnny.
What? Why? Why Johnny?
Because he's a youth, or whatever.
Because he's a fucking communist spy. Who knows, man?
But it's great. It's like the attraction for the paranormal, the desire for an experience that transcends life's everyday humdum, surrounds Johnny, not only in his entertainment, but everywhere in what might be called post-rationalist society. Street corner psychics have proliferated in recent years. 900 numbers offering the guidance of professional psychics abound.
Fuck you, though. Fuck you. You believe that a fucking 30,000 people who's got eye damage from staring at the sun saw Mary make the sun dance around in circles and told everybody to hate communists. That's
Fritz,
the person writing this thinks that happened.
This is the best part, and this is for you because you're a Trekkie.
I'm a trad Trekkie.
The X-Files has something special about it. Johnny's other favorites, like Star Trek, are stories about the conquest of the unknown, basically extensions of the frontier spirit. Men and technology push back the limits of mystery or overcome the forbidding voids of space.
Whoa.
In the X-Files, something different, but very significant happens. An uneasy relationship is established with the extraordinary. The truth is out there, but it might just be more than you expected.
I don't think this person watched a lot of Star Trek, which they're like very specifically not a conquest mission. In fact, it's all about searching out the unknown, plus a lot of interracial stuff. So
I have the feeling that the person who wrote this article isn't even a boomer. This is like...
No, you're probably right. This is probably one of their dude, this is probably one of their Academy graduates or something.
This is like a motherfucker who was like 75 years old in 1994 when the X-Files was, in its heyday.
Oh no, I was thinking the opposite. I was thinking this person's like 17 and this is the kind of freak that they produce. We'll see. I've got an essay for you in a little bit.
I mean, you might be right, but this screams like little Johnny. I don't know. It just seems like a fucking old guy in the 90s.
Yeah, but that reminds me of these kids
but these
too.
people are mentally that, I guess, anyway.
Yeah. Do me a favor. Type in John Horvat II image search and tell me that this fucking guy doesn't look like a detuned Chris Hedges.
He kind of does,
right? Yeah, like they tried to like clone another Hedges, but they birthed him early.
but he has that little cape or whatever.
Yeah, he does have a cape. He looks like what like Mr. Potato Head would look like as a superhero.
I think it's because they have similarly round glasses. Although like Hedges in like keeping with being a leftist has like the traditionally very round glasses of like a Trotsky. Whereas this guy's round glasses are somewhat more angled.
Yeah, he's got some photos of some pretty round like Doctor's Hilla and Hella glasses too, floating around there.
There's that other side of the round glasses too. The slightly smaller ones is is Nazi glasses.
Yeah.
Fritz, do you have an explanation for the red cape?
Yeah. That's their battle flag. The red signifies exactly that, militancy. This is according to Plinio, and the lion also signifies militancy.
Why a cape? Is that because they're like knights or something? What's going on?
That is exactly why. Yeah,
okay.
They are. They're dukes and knights. Yeah.
Okay.
And they're also slaves and volunteers. I think they're all the same people. So John Horvat the second because he's the claimant of some noble line. But the thing is that the John Horvat who is the first precedes him by like centuries. I don't think the numbering system works like that. Like if you're named after a king, you don't get to do the second dealy, do you? I named you. Okay, like if your great granduncle was Boris Mamluz, would you be Boris Mamluz the second?
Maybe.
No.
I don't know. I don't know how that shit works.
Well, I guess none of us are noble enough to know.
Clearly not. No.
Never really came up when I worked at Pizza Hut.
Wait, the original John Horvat, died in 1394?
There you go. Yeah, I don't think you can be the second.
No.
This is what I'm saying.
Shit.
Yeah. So, John Horvat the second became... he joined in 1977, which was 2 years after his Nexian's creation there, the American TFP, the US TFP. And he became president in 2009. I really think he might have even come up through the kind of cultic system here. He was also in South Africa, presumably part of what was called the Young South Africans for a Christian Civilization, which was a TFP front there that was mostly dedicated to purging the clergy of anti-apartheid voices, much like they had done in Brazil with land reform. John was there, apparently. He's also a fencer, loves to fence.
Of course he does. It's like the gentleman's sport or whatever.
It is.
It's also like an Austrian fascist thing.
Yeah.
Also Catholic.
Yeah. Well, here's like a glimpse of the American TFP that he came up in. And this is from a researcher talking about the TFP. They say, as a leader of the TFP in the United States explained to me, members who refer to themselves as, quote, volunteers do not marry, or at least by implication, engage in sexual relations, since they want to dedicate themselves full-time without any distractions to the promotion of Catholic ideals and beliefs, and TFP. As another member of the American TFP explained, the full-time volunteers are single. It's just a desire to follow in our founder's footsteps. He dedicated his whole life to the Catholic cause, serving the church. We live very much like a community. It's a very specific calling. They will call it a calling or a vocation. The other name they like to throw around for this is the vocation of holy single life. And it's, again, just to remind our listeners, these are lay people. They're not clergy.
Right. So they're Volcells.
They're Volcells, yeah.
And but why don't they just become monks or whatever?
Yeah, exactly.
They kind of see themselves that way, but
why not make it official? That that's the church has a place for exactly people like that.
Exactly.
I think because then you're subject to the hierarchy there, and they have been very good at playing hierarchies off of one another. Like they're a political group that has a powerful sway on the church because the church thought it was a super smart idea to fill up their archbishopry with landowning fascists.
But I mean, like there are Catholic monks that are very politically involved as well. I mean, I don't see what stops them. I don't know. Like, there's so many kind of fashy motherfuckers in the Catholic Church.
I think it's because of what happened to the SSPX. Like the SSPX got excommunicated for doing stuff very similar to what the TFP did, but the SSPX was officially clergy. It was archbishops and bishops and priests and shit like that. And that resulted in like the excommunication scandals that lost them a lot of legitimacy in Catholic circles. These guys never needed to have that, Like their legitimacy doesn't come from that.
So they want
and
less
so
control from Rome, basically.
They really, they don't.
Which
give
is
a
the
shit
whole point about
Rome.
being Catholic, no?
Yeah.
Well, we keep saying that on Tradcath shows. Like all the traditionalists are the most rebellious against the church. I mean, these guys took it on their own accordance to purge clergy in the countries that they went to. Like they have some strength there, and I think they wouldn't have it if they were officially clergy, like if they were fathers and monks and brothers and whatever. I think they know. Like they're better as like how the Ustasha like were always more successful as like some fucking emigre terror outfit and propaganda group. It's the same with these guys. Like
Ustashas were very successful in the Catholic Church specifically.
Yeah. Well,
like
these
ones
guys
that carried
are too.
on some of that emigre stuff were Catholic clergy, monks, this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, you're right.
The Institute in Chicago for like Croatian race science is like a Catholic fucking monastery or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And we haven't heard a lot from Ustasha in this whole TFP run.
Thank fuck him. It's not have to deal with him.
I mean, like Ante Pavlich was at World Anti-Communist Forums, I mean, like that's a fact. But apart from that, no strong, obvious connections either. Well, then I don't know. Maybe it will come to us in time why they're not taking their vows. So, okay. So John Horvath II is nowadays making his rounds protesting the recently concluded Synod on Synodality, which was Pope Francis's big gathering that is, I guess, something like, I don't know. It's about like being a church. I don't know what it's about. Anyway, nothing really happened. Nothing came out of it. It wasn't honestly that big of a deal. The only thing that actually did happen in this thing was that it seems like it will be increasingly difficult to have further synods that are exclusively made up of bishops and clergy. Like this was like the tiniest possible metric towards something more democratic-ish. Right? Like that's the most you can say about what happened here. And of course, because of that, TFB and the whole Tradcath world is completely losing their fucking minds over it, Mm-hmm. And so TFB is really out right now. You'll find them all over the place, and trad circles fucking love these guys. John wrote his own books. He created an apparently popular book in the sort of recognize and resist trad circles called Return to Order, where he advocates a return to order. And its full name, though, is Return to Order, from a Frenzied Economy to an Organic Christian Society, Where We've Been, How We Got Here, and Where We Need to Go. And it's an unbelievably dry Cold War era sort of mix of economic rationalism with conservative Christian talking points about how good it was then and how bad it is now, and then some like financial advice and shit like that. It's a very TFP text. Its primary argument through common sense economics and the protection of private property is that America must return to a quote
to slavery.
Organic Christian economic order. Is the idea. Yeah. So yes, essentially more feudalism, let's say.
I mean, I think it's not a coincidence that like a movement that arises in Brazil with the term property picks up in America. They have very similar kinds of, historical.
I'm telling you, match made in heaven here.
Yeah.
Do they advocate like agricultural society?
Weirdly, they advocate, well, in a roundabout way, they advocate serfdom. So, but they advocate a technologically advanced feudal society that takes what they need from modern technology, but doesn't fall into the mistakes of the second industrial revolution that happened after the Middle Ages. They prefer the first industrial revolution, where technology advanced, but it was still officially under the protection of the feudal lords and shit like that. In fact, the Middle Ages are perfect for them, like in every way. I've heard them say that knights are the perfect human type. This phrase comes up a lot, human type, and they're always looking for the ideal human type in these guys. Mm-hmm. They're deeply obsessed with a Marine that I have a song to share with you soon about.
Okay.
But anyway, this more recently they've been pushing around this book called The Synodal Process as a Pandora's Box, with a foreword by Cardinal Burke, who Boris rightly renamed Cardinal Bukake earlier. But it's written by these TFP slaves named Jose Antonio Ureta and Julio Laredo de Izcue, and it's pretty much how I remembered the TFP existed at all, actually, and why we're talking about them. This book started to get pushed by like the tradies on their podcast, and in pretty, this isn't even like fucking Telegram right. This is kind of easygoing, casual listening right. And this book is making its rounds, and essentially, it's an attack on the basic any kind of democratic reform that might happen in the church in the distant future, talking about the role of women, of course, the problem with listening to the people and what's wrong with the people, the problem with any kind of queer inclusion, as well as, of course, the complete opposite, complaining about that the church didn't listen to the people and they weren't consulted before the synod. It's one of these kinds of texts. Yeah. Oh, and a lot about the heretical German sect of liberal bishops that are eating the church from the inside and stuff like this. So, I mean, at the very least, you can say about it is that it's not openly anti-Semitic, So at least there's that. It's not like they were in the 60s and 70s in Brazil, It's much more toned down. And in fact, now that the American TFP has gained so much prominence over the other chapters internationally, all this rhetoric that we would see back in Plinio's day has been toned down on the more obvious fronts. And I mentioned last time that Plinio's archived texts have been like literally strategically set to be bold on certain lines, to present the image of him as like an anti-fascist. And if you read the non-bolded lines, it's completely the opposite story. The same thing happens when you look at the TFP today. It's like you kind of need to know don't just read the bold. Like, all the stuff that's not bolded is where all the true horror is coming from. And one of those things is a video I'm so happy to share with you guys at the end of this episode. And just to give you sort of a sense of how they sort of fit into the mainstream political right these days, they are a major sponsor of CPAC.
Okay.
They appear there frequently. They put money into CPAC. They're also partnered with the Heartland Institute and other like fairly mainstream Koch brother affiliated shit like that. So I mean, they're still riding in that circle. Really, they're still there doing the same thing they've always done.
What's the relationship to the Koch brothers? Do you know?
I think it's through the Heartland Institute, but I'm not entirely sure about this. Their connections are so many, they have so many connections, and it really depends too on even which branch you're talking about, because remember, they are in 25 different countries. So like these connections, they make proliferate, and
they're all around for a while.
Since the 1960s. So I mean, like they hosted the World Anti-Communist League. Like these guys are they're really up there, in this mix of fasci types. So I thought maybe before we get to this video and close on it, I'd give you maybe their blooper reel a little bit. Some fun, wacky things they got into recently. So the TFP had a number of interesting little scandals over the last 20 years or so, and most of them were like involving a parent who realized they were sending their kid to a horrible cult, a fascist. That kind of thing would pop up in the news now and then. They keep finding that out. Like they continually rediscover that that's the case for decades. People. Yeah. So in 2019, very recently, this TFP slave, I guess, from their Austrian Nexian named Alexander Tschugel was in Rome for a bishop's synod there. And the Vatican Gardens were playing a temporary host to some statues there for a ceremony by Francis about the Amazon, where he was talking about the church's relationship to Amazonia and like stuff about, he's on this like kick of telling people not to push Bibles anymore. Like the right wing's really scared about all that kind of shit. He's like, try feeding them instead. They can't eat Bibles, like that kind of thing. And so in the gardens are these statues carved out of wood if you just look at them, you would see them as pregnant women. But they are supposedly some sort of syncretic representation of this Amazonian deity, Pachamama, and also Mary, right? There's like a syncretic indigenous Catholic kind of representation, something like that. But this dude, Tschugel, he was smart, see? And he knew that these were not depictions of Mary. They were actually demonic idols. And he tracked them from these gardens where the synod was to a church where they were being kept after the event. And when nobody was around, he and an accomplice broke into the church and ganked all 5 of these statues tossed them into the river. And this deeply embarrassed the Vatican and the Austrian Church. They were like apologizing profusely. They recovered and cleaned the statues. They returned them home. Chugol, but they didn't do anything about Chugol. Nothing happened to this guy. Nobody charged him with anything. He was fine, and he became a superstar in the American TFP, in the whole American trad circles, actually. Like, he was on tour in Texas from Dr. Taylor Marshall, like bringing him around, talking about his heroic act of like throwing these statues into the river, you know? And Chugol would explain to everybody that he joined the TFP when he was 15. He said that the organization changed his life. We're going to see how that happened when we look at the Academy video. But somebody asked Chugol in one of his rounds a very earnest question. Hey, why did you throw statues of the Virgin Mary pregnant with the Son of God into a river? And Chugol was surprised by this question, a little off-put, and he responded,
even if it were a depiction of Mary, why is she naked and ugly? Mary is always dressed very well and very beautiful.
Exactly.
Mary's always dressed very well. Like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Mary's always dressed to her nines, man. She's always looking good. But yeah, that was his logic. Maybe
because this is like made by people who are like mostly naked also. Yeah, he destroyed Pachamama representations. That's pretty bad. I mean, that's not going to earn you a lot of favors with South American people. No.
Yeah.
It's a big part of like Andean culture and
yes,
is in general in South America pretty popular.
Yeah. Yeah, but he threw them away because they were ugly.
So ugly.
Yeah, therefore evil. And that comes right from TFP. I mean, most of their propaganda starts with...
Because it wasn't a delicate Viennese waltz.
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. It's exactly it. They talk all the time about this. They take their fucking students to, cathedrals to marvel at what is possible in a Catholic-run state. You know, stuff like this. All right. Well, they're also pretty obsessed with this guy. This is another little blooper here. They are obsessed with a dude named Colonel Ripley, who they call an American Knight. I guess he was a TFP guy. Like, he was a friend of Plinio. He supported the TFP all the time. He showed up at their events, and he blew up this bridge, and they are so fucking obsessed with him. And I wasn't really sure why, completely. Because, like, he doesn't give a lot of interviews that I saw where he's just going off about a Catholic medieval state or anything like that. But then I heard an interview with a TFP slave who did the biography by the TFP on Colonel Ripley. And he begins talking about Colonel Ripley when he's answering a question about being a vol cell. It's a strange association that occurs. And he says, like, they're, deciding to have a life of a wholly single life is very much part of the struggle. There are lots of ways to be a man. The most ideal human type of man is Colonel Ripley. He's very manly, and it goes on about the manliness of Colonel Ripley. Mm-hmm. And it seems to be always where the mind goes. This guy really represents something.
You have a very manly physique, Colonel Ripley.
He did. Yeah.
How often do you work out, Colonel Ripley, with such fantastic muscles?
You are the ideal human type, Colonel Ripley. So let's listen to a song, because I promised Boris last time some marching music.
Oh, all right.
This is a song written by the TFP for
Colonel Ripley. Sounds like some guy that some weird like fascist would idolize. You haven't heard of Colonel Ripley?
From Alien?
No, not from Alien.
Oh, she wasn't a colonel. She wasn't in the fucking military. She was a worker.
Colonel Ripley, the ideal man.
Yes, totally. Colonel John Ripley.
Yes. Oh, it's John Ripley, even better.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, Ballad of the American Knight. This sounds promising.
From TFP Student Action South.
It's fucking 6 minutes long. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we're not going to listen to all of it, just the beginning. We do have a long video to end with. We're just going to relax and see the horror unfurl.
All right.
Ballad of the American Knight.
Colonel John W. Ripley.
He's ripped.
From the TFP Call to Chivalry Songbook. That's their summer camp.
Oh, of course, there's
Choppers
the chopper
moving in.
in Vietnam.
Oh, they're shooting peasants.
The door gunner.
Some heroic scenes. Soldiers running into helicopters.
Yeah, this is
Colonel Ripley. Colonel Ripley getting hit from shrapnel from an exploding mortar. Here we go. Awesome picture.
Oh, man.
Marxist foes with tanks and soldiers massed upon that Easter day. Long are with its massive bridge, their means for charging on their way. Ripley and his men remained intent to stop them in their tracks. Days of constant fire and combat left no moment to relax.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow, so get it.
We're all dead was Colonel Turley's stern command. Ripley wasted.
This is bad. This is not a good...
They're singing exactly on the pentameter. The beams outspread.
Climbing high through razor wire while bleeding.
Here we go.
This
Here's the hook.
is all he said. Jesus, Mary, get me there. Jesus, Mary, get me there. No time to waste, no time to spare. Jesus, Mary, get me there.
It's a little catchy. It's a little catchy.
Yeah. They sing this at their summer camps. The children do. All right, there's a good part that comes up.
Jesus, Mary, get me there. Back and forth a dozen times he laid the charges as he went, dodging bullets from the foe to kill him. Now they're one in 10.
Perfect lyrics.
When at last he set the
They rhyme
charges
perfect.
on those I-beams underneath, lacking means to crimp the wires. He used his only tool, his teeth. Too much pressure, and he knew that he'd be gone forevermore.
This is fantastic. This is...
He clamped each one, then fell down half.
This is like their version of a Marvel movie.
Yes. Major smock. There's a part I wanted to get to. I might cut to it, but where they try. They don't do a key shift necessarily. They do an octave shift, and they try to hit like a super high note.
I can't really imagine that with this guy's voice.
Jesus, Mary, get me there. Jesus, Mary, get me there. No time to waste, no
bullets.
Oh, there's the fucking machine on fire.
Here.
Oh.
Yes. Do it. Full protection to it. All the refugees. Oh, the end of the song. Wow. What? Oh. What? With an effect. Alright, we can stop this shit.
Awesome.
Let's stop what the aggressors planned.
Alright, I gotta stop it. I'm stopping it. Gotta walk away at some point.
Just remember these few words of Ripley, the American Knight.
So the American Knight blew up a mighty bridge in a country very far away from his, and that makes him some sort of hero.
Did you not hear the very first line? Marxist foes with tanks and soldiers massed upon that Easter day. This was a holy war against the Marxists.
Wow. Was this
cool? They kicked his ass. That's the best part about it. Is that fucking Curly Ripley is a fucking loser.
Was this guy affiliated with them at all, or
was he affiliated with them? That's the open question. He was a regular attendee of their events, and he was apparently tight with Plinio. I don't know if he was a member. I don't even know for sure if adults can become members. I have this feeling that he might have been too old. Yeah. So
he's as close as an adult can get to be a member, and then they made him a martyr because he blew up a bridge in Vietnam.
But he didn't die. No. He
not a martyr. Yeah, he survived. So he's just a hero.
And let fucking neo-colonial army into a guerrilla war with normal people.
Lovely.
Yay!
I mean, American marching music in general is bad. I've said this. I don't know. It's lame. It's bad. Like John Philip Sousa sucks.
Yes. Well, but though, is it not exactly what you imagined? Yes. Is it not exactly what you imagined them doing, though? You know,
this is like, but more Catholic, and so it's even worse.
Yes. So, yes.
I mean, this is like the first thing you played for us in the first episode when they shout "America." Like this.
Yeah.
This is those people singing.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Can you imagine the guy the guy that you sent us the picture, or the picture,
John Horvat the second?
The guy with the fedora, like,
oh, that kid
in his dorm room, like moved to tears by this song while he's like drunk as fuck, and his like poor roommate sitting there just like listening to him, like watching this YouTube video over and over again, like
Boris
singing along like passionately.
Boris, it's so much more fucked up than that. He's not drunk.
Oh, they can't drink. Huh?
Dead sober.
God damn it.
Yes. So, the same year that Plinio the Immortal died, which is 1995, the TFP, the U.S. TFP branch, opened up the St. Louis de Montfort Academy in Herndon, Pennsylvania. And I'm not sure why they picked this Montfort guy, except that he was a recent addition to the saintly ranks by Ratline Pope Pius XII, so I assume he was some kind of a piece of shit, right? I don't know much about him. The academy has 20-ish teenaged boys as full-time residents and students, and is staffed by those creepy volunteer slave dudes. They are registered as a home school, not a private school, not a private academy, a home school, and they use some certified homeschool half-assed curriculum alongside their more like unique offerings. And in the summer, the Academy hosts the Call to Chivalry summer camp. In 2009, the theme of this was the Cristeros resisting socialism in Mexico in the 1920s. Later themes were Scotland, France, England, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They get a visit at the camp. This is the highlight, they say, of the Lady of Fatima statue that they sell. And a reporter notes, the camp ended with medieval games and a grueling obstacle course, followed by a beautiful rosary procession with Our Lady of Fatima statue and a fine dinner featuring a whole roasted pig, claims their own report there. So it's medieval times. So now, from what we know about like the post-integralist return to like papal state shit that is the vibe of the historical TFP, this seems about right. It appears to be largely funded by donors from the TFP's vast network of rich people, including like royal family members and shit. There are complaints you can find online from all sorts of Catholics who today will donate to this school, thinking it's like some regular old needy private Catholic school somewhere, only to look it up and figure out what it really is. And it seems like people continually rediscover that the TFP is a fascist cult. And it just goes on and on and on for decades. So maybe one hint would be a portion of this essay I'm going to read to you now, penned by a 10th grade student at the Montfort Academy.
Okay.
This is what he says. This is a text about how socialism is destroying the world, starting with peace and moving on from there. So this 10th grader writes this. Once peace is out of the bland red painting of socialism, order is the next blemish to be wiped of the canvas. What little order is left is not Catholic order, but something similar to the routine of a dog. Work, eat, work, sleep, etc. He's a May 1968 Paris rioter, apparently. All for the imposition of a false ideal. At this point, the differences between man and beast are almost imperceptible within the matured socialist nation. The destruction of the soul makes for an almost inhuman environment. The natural classes of people are crushed down to a level plane, equalizing worker with the master. The master, boy.
It's a little projection there, no?
Uh-huh. With only a bit of twine between the powder and the fire, the only action that can save such a state from socialism is to cut the fuse with a return to Christian order. A transformation of souls and a restoration of good order is what can bring about a society revolving around God, not dictator. Peace comes from order, which comes from hierarchy. Take one of these out of the equation, and a swift disintegration is imminent. Thus, the true answer for a perfect society is one that is ruled by God's laws, and one that rules each class of people in such a manner as is due to them. Peace and order will flourish within the graces that flow from such a society. It is therefore apparent that socialism is not an answer, but the suicide of a nation. 10th grade. 10th grade. 10th grade.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. I mean, what 10th grader hasn't had their communism crushes the natural order of a class society moment, you know? Probably a lot, though, really. I mean, that's like the age of like fucking 4chan and shit, so who knows? But now, I hope you're all wanting to see exactly what horrible shit has to happen to you as an adolescent to turn you into this kind of kid. So grab some popcorn. We're going to end this episode with a viewing of the Montfort Academy's own promotional video for prospective students. Oh. And it is the scariest thing I could think of to give to you on this spooky Halloween season. Here.
So, you think I won't be joining?
Wait, what are you talking about?
I won't be joining the school when I see the promo video.
I don't know. We've joined a lot of organizations in the past. I'd say 50-50 chance at this point.
Okay.
Jesus, Mary, get me there. Jesus, Mary, get me there. Time to wait, no time to spare. It is catchy.
It is catchy.
Yeah, I'll be singing that for a while, sadly.
I didn't think so at first, and now it's there. And I'm wrong, it's not like a marching song. It does have that more like medieval...
It's like a medieval marching song. It's a ballad. It is a ballad, but it's a ballad in that marchy way, like the Ballad of the Green Berets. You know what I mean? Like, I think
Jesus, Mary, brush my hair. No, that's not Mary
Chain. Jesus and Mary Chain? No? Never mind. Shoegaze?
Jesus.
Anyway, I'm just going to jump us right to this anyway, because it's going to be long. I haven't totally decided what I'm going to do with it. I think let's just watch all of it, and I either like keep a bunch of it, or I cut with it or something, or I keep all of it. I don't know. We'll see. But I sent the link.
How long is it?
20 minutes.
Oh,
Jesus. Okay.
It's really captivating. That's the thing.
I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. It's going to do a bump of coke. Colonel Ripley, like a seal, shaved himself from bow to keel.
I mean, look at it. I mean, they are scary. They look like, I don't know, psychos, no?
Right now, I'll be objective.
Yeah.
It looks like the average kind of Catholic school kid.
Yeah, it looks like a private academy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, remember, this is a homeschool. Yeah?
Right.
This is like, there's no law here.
It's not a real school.
They can do whatever the fuck they want. All right. Here we go.
Hello. My name is... I'd like to invite you to take a look into life at St. Louis de Montfort Academy, where we live the ideals of chivalry.
So this guy imagines how you'd look, full-on Henry Ford, suit and tie. Guy swinging a banner around. The marching band approaches, all wearing red sashes. Various sousaphones. Some fencing.
Oh, they're fencing, of course.
And the title is St. Louis de Montfort Academy, where heroes are forged.
Oh.
There's some older dude, graduate, I assume.
Is that bagpipe?
The indomitable Catholic leader, Professor Plinio Correa de Oliveira, inspired the foundation of St. Louis de Montfort Academy. Its mission has always been clear.
Kill commies.
To forge young men into heroes who will love and defend the ideals of Christian civilization.
That's not right.
Located in Herndon, Pennsylvania, St. Louis de Montfort Academy is run and staffed by full-time volunteers of the American TFP.
Yeah, a.k.a. slaves,
the curriculum
is
we
what they
follow
call
is
themselves.
accredited by the Seton Home Study School. And our academy is also qualified to receive
That's a lot of sixes there for...
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's 3 6s, actually. It did say 666 on the board.
This is our new school building, dedicated to Our Lady of Good Success.
So this is dedicated to Our Lady of Good Success, which is a mistranslation. It should be good events.
That's the prosperity doctrine.
Because the mistranslation of the original word is in English success, now it's a prosperity doctrine thing.
Students are blessed with a serious, informative classroom environment without the secular relativism that commonly harms so many schools today.
No secular relativism.
You know your own degrees. Sit down.
So here they are in class.
At first and last, the hearty welcome. Safe in a ditch he bides.
Huge Dead Poet Society vibes here.
Gashes on his head. The least a death to nature. Thanks for that. There the grown serpent lies. The worm
They're all quietly reading along as the elder student reads to them. And then the lights go off at the TFP Academy.
At 9 p.m. or
But then in the morning...
Rising is early.
That clock says 5:35.
It's time for them to go marching, I'd imagine.
You're basically right. Watch this shit. So this one kid gets up at like 5:45, goes to a bell that's inside the school.
Every day starts with the prayer to St. Michael.
They're in the hallway, lined up, giving a prayer to St. Michael, defeater of the devil. This is the first thing you do in the morning.
Now this sucks.
Great attention is given to maintain order and discipline.
Oh, this is hell.
This is hell. You make your bed perfectly. You iron all your clothes. This is every morning here.
I mean, I think this is like a lot of like boarding schools now.
This is very yes, it is. It's also very much like a military academy.
Yeah.
You'll see why in a second here. Boarding schools are horrible already. This is like a completely uncertified wild one run by fascists.
An academy student's uniform should always be in order, with shoes polished and ready for inspection. Every day we have an inspection of the rooms.
Plinio is on the wall.
Students' shoes are expected to be in line. Their beds are expected to be made nice and neat. And dressers are supposed to be dust-free. I don't think that would pass.
He put his finger on one.
Failure in meeting these high standards might call for push-ups before breakfast.
You sleep in the top line?
Presto sum.
Presto sum, they respond to the old guy who comes in and accepts punishment. The punishment is push-ups.
Oh, okay.
So no whipping.
No. This is 2022.
Devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary is the keystone of academy life. Whether at meals, studies, or games, each activity begins with a prayer, beseeching Our Lady for protection and guidance.
Let's have the pre-game prayer.
Students are encouraged to practice that true devotion to Mary Most Holy, which our holy patron explains in his writings.
Weeping statue of Mary.
This is the formation room where, today, we will sing the little office of the Blessed Virgin Mary.
So this is every day for these guys. This is a school from 6th grade to 12th grade. Just keep reminding yourself,
students are able to go to confession.
this all came from like fucking firebombing leftists in Brazil, right? This evolved out of these like fucking training camps that little boys were sent to have their like legs broken and stuff, and boy on boy whipping contests. And then it comes to America, and look at all these fresh faced little fascists, you know. I'm gonna probably fast forward through a lot of this.
All the creepy organ music.
Yeah.
From rising until night prayers, the bell is important in helping students keep track of their busy schedule.
Can you imagine this? Constantly ringing. We had bells in our school between periods, you know, and it's technically the same thing, but there's something about it when it's like this fucking
it's more visceral
iron monstrosity in the dorm room, you know?
The ambiances inside our building.
So they're showing like a little study room, and you can tell how much goddamn money they have here.
Each room has differing.
Well, it's made to look like they have a lot of money.
It is, but they also do. Yeah. Like some of these come from old, you know, Braganza's family hunting lodges and shit, you know?
Staff and peers. Yeah. It's consistent with the ambiances in which they study, live, and pray.
So their whole vibe is essentially like high European nobility in everything they can. I mean, they have insane fucking glassware. And
gilded fucking
gilded butterflies.
Yeah.
Yes, and surrounded, of course, by pictures of Mary, statues of Mary.
Every morning we raise the Stars and Stripes, followed by the singing of the Nicene Creed, or the Credo, during which we raise the standard of the American TFP, which symbolizes the ideals which we defend.
Interesting they don't give the Pledge of Allegiance, no?
Ceremony helps us live for higher ideals. It helps us transcend our own defects and individual struggles, and, for a moment, find renewed vigor to follow the sublime ideals we truly live for.
Yeah, they're just out there removing boys' defects. What can go wrong? So they raise their red standard
of tradition
family property. Golden ass lion.
Family property.
Here we go.
Tradition, family property. America, America, America.
You boys only saw that in the wild. This is where they learn it. This is them preparing the next group to go out to protest abortion.
It's a weird formation that they're into, like this triangle.
It's an attack formation. They're singing this horrible song, marching very slowly back into the academy. This is, again, their daily routine.
We want God who is our King.
Every day.
We want God our Father.
Every day.
We want God who is our King. We want God our Father.
So now they're having fun. Oh, they're surrounded by this other detuned Chris Hedges.
To rest the mind from the rigors of study, there are a variety of indoor games on certain days, such as Marshall, and charades.
These are the games that are organized every day with the approved game time.
Act like one, act like two. MC, freeze, configure.
Server. Configure.
Oh, Jesus.
So these are, and this fucking, again, another Chris Hedges looking dude is like whispering telephone words to the boys.
This is like, but that's like pedophile Chris Hedges. Like, this guy looks like totally scary.
Yeah. But what creeps me out about all this is everything. Now these are military games. A child.
Must be the...
These are children.
I mean, they're all children. That's what's disturbing about this.
You notice that the trooper was not trooping.
But this is all they know. You know what I mean? This is all day they're here, every day for years of their formative life.
We'll talk about this once this is done. I think I have some thoughts about this.
Their summers are more of this.
Outdoor activities are important as well. These include shield ball, French football.
Shield ball and French football, very popular games in America.
Why those two specifically? Like,
well, there's a lot of French, going on here.
I mean, it is called
the Louis de
Montfort Academy.
They have French-themed medieval chivalry summer camps too. And
games at the academy are uniquely original.
I bet.
The one being played right now is called French football. The object is to score the ball into the net without being tackled.
So it's rugby.
On either end of the field, there are two nets. The game is full contact, so long as no one gets hurt.
They're also not wearing any clothes you would wear normally when you play a sport.
The team invokes the name of a saint, asking their help.
They're always dressed very. This is their loose casual dress. It's matching khakis, like windbreakers, and long sleeve shirts tucked into their pants neatly with belt for inspection.
Fencing presents great challenges to conquer.
So this is the evolution of what we know about
Similar
them, right?
to spiritual combat, methodical action and discipline is essential if you want to be victorious.
They have a shield, a buckler, and some swords.
At the end of each school year, students compete against each other for a grand
But there's
prize.
still like combat going on, right? But it's in this very banal, like summer camp way. But like you saw them, they're dressed up in medieval shit and armor. Like it's a big deal to them.
Yes, but these are children.
These are children.
This is a propaganda film made by like adults featuring children who don't have like agency to participate in this.
They actually, I think, there's like definitely an AV club here that does lots of stuff for them.
Yeah, but they don't. They have to produce like shit like this.
So the pizza is actually made by the students. Shrooms,
It's still the same like cult it used to be back in Brazil.
green pepper,
It's just so like
basil.
fucking
Yeah,
sanitized.
but, like these people are sent there by their parents. Like I know people that went to like military school and
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah,
all kinds of
yeah.
shit.
These are like leadership schools too. You know, this is for the academy to train the next generation of TFP leaders. But I think this is also what they learned from their American experiences. You know, like this is the sphere they became most successful in. Was like creating these political soldiers. You know.
Friday evenings are marked by a special game, Prison Break.
So they play Prison
A
Break.
favorite at the academy.
Strobe lights.
Prison guards hunt to recapture escapees using flashlights and cunning strategy.
This is a game I played growing up. What we didn't do is dress up in military fatigues and flash strobe lights, which would have been awesome. I would have done that in a heartbeat. It would have been fucking sweet. But knowing like where this comes from and like what the point of all this is, it's all like somehow a military game, no? Like pretty much every game they've played has been a military
beer
game.
floats afterwards.
And then they celebrate on schedule after every Friday night's Prison Break game with a scheduled root beer float. And then these children sing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow. This is terrifying to me.
With the weird guys standing there.
Yeah, with like the creepy adults.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, this is a literal nightmare.
Imagine being sent here by your fucking parents and you can't
this
go
is
home.
like an absolute version of hell.
Yeah. So the general gist is that like I don't know what the volunteers do. It seems like the students do everything. Like they make their own food.
I mean, I think they're probably not showing the volunteers as much because they're like fucking creepy old people, probably.
They are creepy old people. If you follow them on some of their summer camp videos, they take them out to the woods and shit, and like they make the kids hike for like fucking 6 hours to get to the camp spot that they obviously drove to because they're all fucking like completely out of shape. I don't know. It's a nightmare.
Oh, they offer opportunities to go to
The site of Notre Dame Cathedral.
They do.
The Sainte-Chapelle.
Yes.
Or the great castles of Europe. Demonstrates what people can do when they truly love God.
What people can do when they truly love God when they have Catholic monarchy.
It gives us great hope. Because if America, like a new St. Paul, would convert, similar or even greater marvels than these are possible for the glory of God.
America is the next Catholic monarch.
So if Ariel becomes Catholic, we'll have castles again.
Fuck yeah, we will. First thing we built.
Our Lady herself gave the rosary to Saint Dominic as a weapon to fight against evil. Because of this, the devil has a particular hatred for the rosary. So by praying the rosary, we advance her reign and...
Now we see the kind of rosary, the Fatima element of all this, when the rosary itself became a Cold War symbol that we talked about several times, right? So,
is that a different style of rosary than other ones?
No, it's just playing the rosary, but they do speed runs of the rosary in this like militant formation style as well.
You're not doing the rosary fast enough, Joseph.
And again, like their founder didn't care at all about this until, Nazis invaded Russia.
Each student is encouraged to learn an instrument and play with our Holy Choir of Angels marching band.
So they all learn an instrument, at least. They learn a skill, haircutting. They learn to cook. They learn the bagpipe, yeah. Lots of bagpipes.
We take our faith and principled convictions to the public square.
There they go. So they take all the kids out in costume. They all know how to march. They're all playing instruments.
Fife and Drum Corps has played patriotic hymns for events such as the annual March for Life in Washington, D.C., as well as other pro-life events.
Yeah, they're big.
Traditional marriage rallies and anti-blasphemy campaigns. The band's triumphant note reminds us that if we have confidence in Our Lady, we will ultimately see the victory that she promised at Fatima. Finally, my immaculate heart will triumph.
That's a quote from the Secrets of Fatima.
For us, education and temporal considerations are important, but secondary. We live for a higher purpose, which is to give greater glory to God and serve Our Lady. Our school forges Catholic leaders, men of faith, men of principle and dedication. We exist to strengthen souls, to become heroes filled with enthusiasm and admiration for purity, and the ideals of Christian civilization.
Creepy.
That is what St. Louis de Montfort Academy is all about.
Oh, they have a giant cross there as well.
Oh, of course.
I mean,
yeah, and they sword fight.
I mean, it looks like they want to crucify someone.
It really does. Probably Mike Pence.
Or like do they're the
those like
KKK.
Philippine Catholic things where they crucify each other.
Yeah.
On Easter.
Now that you've taken a look into life at St. Louis de Montfort Academy, I would like to ask you to pray for our school, that we may continue to grow, so that more souls may be strengthened and encouraged to live the ideals of chivalry. Thank you, and God bless.
So, Ray, you asked me a long time ago if we would be sad by the end of this.
Mm-hmm.
What say you?
I mean, yes, it's sad.
Yeah.
They're they're children.
Yes. They're children under the full control of a fascist Catholic sect.
I mean, all of these schools are just inherently sad. I mean,
That's true.
school is sad.
School
Boarding
itself is
schools
sad.
are
Public
especially
school is sad. Boarding schools are horrifying. Military academies are prisons. I mean, this is all of those things, again, run by fucking
Catholic fascists, yes.
Fucking Catholic fascists.
Which makes it even more sad.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like unfortunately there are a lot of different kinds of horrible schools like this in the US.
Definitely.
This is just one of many. I feel bad for those fucking kids.
Yeah, for real.
I bet you half of those fucking kids. When was this movie? This video made?
Like very recently, last few years.
So like they still might be students or maybe just graduating.
Oh yeah, for sure. Most of those students.
I bet you half of those
there.
people are fucking super damaged. Don't want anything to do with TFP. You know, their stupid ass parents fucking sent them there.
You do find stories about this. It's definitely true. But I think it's also true that these guys have been doing this for a long time and they're really good at it at this point. And like if you see the evolution over time from where they started, kind of producing like fascist street gangs to now producing like Catholic leadership. But how many of the things that you see just seemed like sanitized versions of the crazier shit they did back in Brazil, you know? Not that it's that much different than your average military academy either, but like it is a military academy. They are an army and they see themselves that way. But again, it's not a fucking academy. It's a homeschool.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess is a subtle difference in this case.
I think the difference is regulation. But
it's even less regulation than some of these other ones.
Like, I'm all for having students in general, you know, integrate themselves with the daily processes of how a school functions. I think that that's fine. I think that kids get a lot of skills that way. But I find this version of it suspicious somehow. Like, they're staffed full-time by volunteers. But, like, I mean, like you said, like, we don't really see what they're doing necessarily, but we did see that the kids do a lot of work.
Boarding schools work too, like the behavior modification ones. A lot of them depend on staff that are people that went through the same thing and
That's
that
my
like
impression
can
here,
function outside of that reality, and so they go back to that and inflict the same thing upon other people.
Yeah,
it's like a pretty common thing in these kinds of schools.
So our conclusion is tradition family property, a bit suspicious.
Suspicious.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, I'm fine with abolishing those three things there.
Totally. Yeah. No argument here. I think this is a pretty good reason why.
Yeah. No, I'm like curious now as to, you know, what alumni of that school have to say about it. And
well, I found a couple CVs from some of them as they entered the workforce.
I'm more curious about like the ones that, because there are like lots of forums for people that went to like fucked up schools like this and that kind of shit.
Oh yeah, no, they're out there. They're out there. In fact, I used some of the stuff that they did coming out of those groups for the last episode, actually. Like some of those testimonials have been worked into the story already. They're definitely out there. But I mean, a lot of these guys are just like, I gotta believe that John Horvath II is exactly one of these kids at one point. Like, he looks in every way like all these kids look like, you know?
Right, but I mean, those kids are recreated in the image of these, you know,
I guess fucking
adults. I mean, they wrote all of this. They created the curriculum. They did all, you know. I'm just not really convinced that it works that way. I'd imagine that like a lot of TFP people that like get involved in the college level are much more, or, you know, whatever, when they're older slightly, are much more fanatical than these ones that, you know, have to go to, you know,
hell
school. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Yeah, you might be right. I don't know, but you know, hopefully we might hear from some people. We often do, from our listeners who were involved in some of the organizations we talk about, and I'd love to hear from anybody that grew up in this kind of environment or went to school in these places. And
where is it in Herndon?
Herndon. Yeah, Herndon, PA. I think it's on the border down there. No,
that's like Eastern PA, I think.
It's a very large compound. It's quite large. They have a lot of land there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And this academy itself is a donor, as well as taking donations. Like, you can write it off on your taxes if you donate to them, but they also put money up for things apparently like CPAC. So it's I don't know. I don't exactly know how their structure works, to tell you the truth. But like Ray said, it is a little bit suspicious, and I guess that's where we'll leave it.
We cannot completely endorse the organization.
Yes.
We have some reservations.
Yes. Yeah. But we won't have any more episodes because I'm tired of it. But I am absolutely sure they'll be back. I mean, they're gonna be popping up here and there, I think, throughout Arc 5, seeing how well connected they were to so many key figures of such horrible groups that we're definitely gonna cover.
Definitely wouldn't be surprised to see them again.
No. All righty, guys. Well,
all right.
I'm going back to Italy in the next episode.
Hey,
that's great. All right. Do these people also hate music?
I mean, they are, well, probably not. But they are followers of Evola, who had specific opinions about modern music. But,
he did.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they comment on music. They're more into terrorism.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes.
Next time. All right, guys. See you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.